You know that phrase, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Is that true? You're walking down the street and you see someone with a t-shirt on and it's got one of your paintings printed on it, and you haven't made that t-shirt. Are you flattered, or are you really hacked off that someone has stolen your painting and put it on a t-shirt? Well, I think I know what the answer to that is. So today I want to talk about copyright. Bit of a dry subject, and I have to say right from the beginning, I am not a lawyer. This is my understanding. The reason I want to talk about copyright is that I had one of those experiences this week, and I want to share a few examples that have happened over the years and some action you can take, how you might find out, and what you can do to stay legal and safe. So, as I say, I am not a lawyer. My name's Liz Chatterton and I'm an artist. Every week I do a tip, trick or technique that I wish someone had told me about ages ago. And looking back, I wish I'd known so much more about copyright when I started painting, because I have a horrible feeling I contravened a whole load of laws. You'd rather like a look at this. I don't know how I came across it, but I was, on the internet as you are, and I saw these products with one of my cows on them. And actually, I thought they looked quite cool. I thought, oh, I quite fancy some sneakers with cows on. But I had not given permission, so it was a bit of a shock. And it wasn't in China, which is where we, let's be honest, it might expect the most copyright infringement. This was an American website, and they were selling duvets, mugs, sneakers, you name it, with my cow on it. What about this one? This I did search for, and I'm going to show you how to do that reverse image search. And I looked, and here again, what is it with cows? Two more of my cows. This time they are being turned into diamond art designs. And if you don't know what diamond art is, it's sort of little plastic beads that you stick on and you make a picture. It's a bit like painting by numbers, but with plastic beads. And these were all over. It wasn't just one shop. Once I started looking, it was all over shops in AliExpress, which is the Chinese equivalent of Amazon. What was I going to do? So you might be interested in, I just said, reverse picture searching. We all know we can go into Google and put in a word and come up with answers. Well, you can do exactly the same with pictures. So let me show you that here. Open up Google as normal and hit that little camera icon. Here, hit upload an image and then go to your photo library and choose the file that you want. In this case, I'm going to select a tawny owl that I painted pretty recently because I don't expect to find it at all. It uploads it, and then it shows me the image. It gives me an idea of what it might be. It shows me some visually similar images. There are a lot of purple owls out there. And then it shows me all the pages where I can find it, and I can check that those are all legitimate. It's as simple as that. As well as Google, which is probably the most comprehensive, there's also a website called TinEye, which you might find useful. And there are services like Pixabay, which you can register pictures with, and they do searches for you, and they are intellectual property attorneys. So if you find an unauthorized use, you could get them to act on your behalf, and they would take a share of whatever damages they come up with. So sometimes you might find uses of your work that you haven't authorized by going and looking. Sometimes you might just come across them thinking, that looks spookily familiar. And sometimes people alert you. And this week I got a message from someone in Canada saying, did I know that a particular artist was doing copies of my paintings and selling them? There is indeed an artist in Halifax, Nova Scotia, copying not just my pictures, but lots of other artists' pictures and selling. And she's not just selling one, she has thousands of followers on her page, and she is selling a painting a day for hundreds of dollars. So this is a really decent business. I take my hat off to her for her sales technique, which I understand is actually her husband. You get to learn a lot when you start poking around. Copyright is there to protect your creative work, to stop others using and abusing it. But the work has to be in a tangible form, is the phraseology. And it does vary from country to country, the actual details of the law. So I'm more familiar with the UK because that's where I am. The US is slightly different. Australia probably is slightly different. Canada is slightly different. But there is a thing called the Berne Convention, which gives copyright protection around the world. Okay, copyright goes back to the Statute of Anne in 1710. Very educational. We're talking copyright on creative works, and I'm going to talk about art because that's what I know, but it does apply to music and writing and things like that. Copyright is important because it's meant to protect you. It's meant to stop people putting your work on the internet or deciding they like your picture and using it as the header photo for their website, or making copies of it, physical direct copies, or what's called derivative works. So copying it with paint, but it's the same picture, and selling it as their own, or even selling it as a copy. It stops people hiring it out. It stops people putting your pictures on a t-shirt. That's what it's designed to do. Thinking, oh, okay, fine. How do I get it? I bet it's a really long, difficult process. Actually, no. The moment you put your idea into a tangible form, so in our case we put paint on paper, copyright exists. Now in the UK we don't have a central register of copyright, it just exists. Whereas in America, yes, it exists the moment you make it, but you actually have to register it to be able to use legislation to take legal action and so forth. And there is a central register which costs money to actually register each and every design. So immediately you can see there's a bit of a problem potentially. You know, if you paint 100 pictures a year and it costs, it's about, I think about $50, I'd have to check that. That's a lot of money if you want to protect all of them. So you might decide just to protect your most popular pictures. But in America, that registration almost acts like a birth certificate for your painting. So if you think the painting has been done, it exists, everyone knows it exists, and that has copyright, it's a real painting. The registration is its official birth certificate. And in America, if you register it within 3 months of exhibition or public showing, then you have the right to sue for up to $150,000 should your copyright be contravened. In the UK, we don't have to do that registration, and copyright theft can be punished by up to 10 years in prison or an unlimited fine. That is incredibly rare for that to happen, but those are the consequences of copyright theft. There's a bit of a myth as well about a thing called poor man's copyright. And the idea is you can't afford that $50 to register your painting or your play or your song or your poem. So you make a copy, put it in an envelope and mail it to yourself. And the postmark on the envelope proves that it exists at that particular time. Don't open the envelope is the idea, and it shows it exists at that time. Yeah, it's a fallacy. It could be used as evidence, but it doesn't overcome the need to actually put your work on that central register. Copyright is for tangible things. I don't know, the paintings over my shoulder, they have copyright, but copyright doesn't cover facts. No one can copyright a fact. Copyright doesn't cover common symbols, even like the copyright symbol. Doesn't cover styles. You cannot copyright your style of painting, or subjects. No one could copyright painting flowers or cows or birds. It doesn't copyright your technique or colours or colour combinations. Copyright doesn't cover instructions either. So there are quite a few things that aren't covered by copyright. Let's give an example. I wake up and I want to paint a white horse, and I'm going to invent lots of colours in it and have them flowing out, and I'm going to use watercolour. And I mention this to a friend. Lo and behold, I see later on Facebook they painted a white horse with flowing colours, da da da. Nothing I can do about that because it was just an idea. It's not covered by copyright. However, if I paint that horse and it exists, it is then covered by copyright. So people cannot paint that same horse in that same pose, in that same way, having seen my horse, because mine is covered by copyright. And that's why what that woman in Canada has done is illegal. However, I don't own white horses, I don't own watercolour, I don't own loose colourful watercolour. Of course I don't. So you cannot copyright that. No one owns a subject, a style or a colour, which is a good thing. But even if something is copyrighted, then, or is it copyright? I think it's copyrighted. Then you can use it in some situations. So you can use it for private study. You see a painting that you absolutely love, you can copy it for private study and learning. I can use it for teaching. So I could show you examples here because I am teaching. You can use quite a few things for reporting current events. You can use copyright material for critique and review. So you've been to an art exhibition, you've taken a photograph and you're writing a review for your local paper, you can do that. You can use copyright material for parody, pastiche and caricature. And then there's a bit of a catch-all which varies from country to country. In America it's called fair use, in the UK it's called fair dealing, and it does vary, so you're going to have to check. But it's basically, you know, what would a fair-minded person think of this? So if you use a tiny amount, and I mean tiny, of someone's work in a collage, that could be judged as fair dealing. There is this notion that you can change 10% of a picture and that counts as fair use. That doesn't exist in law as far as I'm aware. So if it's recognisable, it's recognisable. Tough. So the other thing you might be interested in is what happens if you sell a picture? What happens to copyright? I painted a picture of someone's dog and they thought, God, I love this dog. And they happened to be a pet food manufacturer and they thought, do you know, that would look brilliant on my tins of dog food. God, that would look classy. And they printed it on their tins of dog food and put posters up about it, and all their adverts have my picture in it. That is illegal unless they have specifically bought the copyright or they license it. So copyright stays with the artist. You might be thinking, well, how can I avoid having my work stolen? And I'm going to say, chill. Really unlikely that someone is going to steal your work and put it on tins of dog food. But it's possible. And the only way that you can stop your work being stolen is never show it to anybody. The internet is the Wild West. The right click of a mouse, anyone can copy anything. So, you know, and if you just showed stuff in person and you weren't even on the internet, someone could take a photo and they could then make a print of it, you know. But will it damage you? Will it cause you financial damage? Probably not. So don't get overly worried about it. There are a few simple things you can do to protect yourself. So you might, rather than putting a straight on picture of your painting, you might take a picture from a slight angle, put a brush on it, or you'll have your palette by the side so it is not usable for reproduction. That would be one way. But of course, if you're selling paintings or you're in an exhibition, it's got to be clear. You could put a watermark on your painting. Watermarks are really easy to remove if you've got a bit of technical know-how. It's sensible not to put very high resolution pictures on the internet. So if your picture is only a megabyte, people aren't going to be able to print duvets off it, or it will be really poor quality, pixelated and pointless. If you put 10 megabytes onto the internet, they could do what they like with that, and the quality would look good. Like, you could disable the right click function. We always do right click, copy, paste. But someone can screenshot it, someone can take a photo of the screen, so that really doesn't protect you very much. So if you're sharing your work, you cannot fully protect it. It is sensible to sign your work so that no one can say, oh, I didn't know who it belonged to. It's sensible to have a copyright statement, or to use the little C symbol, so that it's a reminder to those who might have, forgotten that stealing other people's work is illegal. Anyway, it's a reminder, but that's about all you can do to protect your work. So what can you do if you spot your work's being copied, your copyright's been infringed? Well, first of all, just look at the circumstances, I would suggest. If it's a private individual and they've copied one of your paintings for study and they're really chuffed with what they've done and they share it online, it might be a different situation from they've printed it on duvet covers. Is there any point jumping up and down and shouting? Well, no. There are different situations when you see, like my friend in Canada, when I've been told that she's done this for years, that people have called her out, they've got abusive, blocked people on Facebook and just carried on. At that point, but you can be a little more heavy-handed and call them out. You can do what is called a cease and desist letter. So it is an official legal letter saying basically, oi, I've spotted you, stop it. If you don't stop it, I will take further action. You can get templates on the internet that it is legal for you to copy and use. They could ignore you, and then would you take legal action? You know, lawyers charge £300 an hour. Are you going to do that? Possibly not. The most powerful thing to do is to report it to the internet service provider. If it's on Facebook, report it to Facebook. If it's on Insta, whatever. With the cows on the duvets, it was a Shopify shop. I reported it to Shopify. The whole shop was taken down within half an hour. I did contact the people directly first. They ignored me. Then I went to Shopify. To report on Facebook or Insta, very easy. Let me just show you how you do that. One of my husband's post, and I'm not reporting him. Click those three dots. You report a problem, something else at the bottom there, intellectual property, and then you want to learn about intellectual property. You go to there and you have to search, and eventually it says copyright this form, and then you go from there. Of course, you can do is to use the court of public opinion. You can shame people. So you can comment, that looks remarkably similar to my paintings, or a bit more blunt, why don't you paint your own paintings instead of copying mine? Now, of course, the person is possibly shameless and they can block you, they can delete your comments. You can get your friends to do this. You can get a little bit of, not a mob, because you need to stay legal. Basically, make your work too much of a bother to copy. In the situation with this Canadian woman, I contacted them through messages, I commented on posts, they were deleted. At the end of the messages, they blocked, so I couldn't message them further. I had their email address. I then emailed I'll read you the answer in a moment. Facebook said, oh, they've taken the post down, so there's nothing more we can do. I suspect this person will simply open another profile. I hope that the fuss I made will have alerted a few people, and potentially they will tell me or report it themselves when they spot it. I can no longer track their behaviour because they've totally blocked me. And I just have to say, is it worth getting really upset about? Is it worth spending more time over? Probably not. The remedy is to sue, should you wish to. Is it worth it? No. Unless you've got very deep pockets. And what would you actually get in the end? What damage has been done? What compensation might you get? If they haven't got assets, even if you got awarded, that $150,000, would you get it? No. And you'd probably have to pay your own attorney. Costs might be set against them, but is it worth taking 2 or 3 years, which is what it would do? Well, of course it's not. Life is too short, and just get on with it. So the best course of action is to approach direct, especially if you think people might not be knowing. Potentially turn it into a positive opportunity. If you find someone's used one of your pictures on, say, an ebook cover, you could say, that's my picture, you don't have permission, but for £100 a year, I'm happy to give you official permission. Well, they might go for that. £100, not a huge amount, but it would buy you a few bottles of wine. So, you could turn it to the positive. And I think that's the best thing here. The other thing to make sure is that it's not just coincidental. Lots of people paint loose, colourful watercolour animals, and it is totally possible that you might have used the same reference photo and come up with a very similar result. That does happen. In fact, a friend of mine was quite upset this week because she had used a freely available reference photo of 2 owls. She'd painted a beautiful painting of that, and then she'd spotted that a better known artist had used exactly the same photo and painted a remarkably similar painting because they have very similar styles. She now feels she can't show her picture in case she gets accused of copyright theft. But actually they both did it independently, and that's just what happened. So this might have all scared you a bit, but shouldn't be. How do you stay legal? Well, don't copy people's paintings. That's one thing. Be careful what reference photos you use. There are lots of sites on Facebook, groups where post their photos for you to use. There are sites like Pixabay. Paint My Photo is a lovely site where photographers share their photos deliberately for you to paint. The danger is, of course, that you might paint the same photo as someone else, like my friend with her owls. That's just a danger. Take your own photos, sketch your own sketches, and you'd be safer. And just because someone asks you to do it, you don't have to do it. You say no. It's saying, oh, well, someone asked me to do it, so it's their responsibility, doesn't get you off the hook. If someone asks you to steal a car and you steal it, you're the one that's going to get prosecuted even if they asked you to do it. So, it's no defence. Really careful of fan art. So if you think I want to do a painting of Mickey Mouse, go careful, because I say very few people sue, but I've heard of Disney sending out some really scary letters. So watch out for fan art and know what you're doing. Research it before you do it. And if you do a tutorial, you do a painting from a tutorial, it's just common courtesy to say from a tutorial by, and if you do tag the tutor, they'll be happy, they'll comment, they'll probably share your painting, and you'll both win. And that's the thing, what would a fair person do? How can we all win out of this whilst protecting our hard work? The exception to that is if you want to then say, God, that is a really good painting. I love that. Oh, my local art group has got an exhibition. I'll put it in there. At that point, you should ask the permission of the tutor. Can I exhibit this? Or if you want to sell it, you need to say to the tutor, could I put this in my local art exhibition? It will be for sale. Do I have your permission? Please, can I have your permission? Most tutors, if they asked before, will say yes. I certainly do. So that's my little romp through copyright. I hope you found that useful with those little examples. I would love to know if you've had any problems with copyright, how you've dealt with it, what happened. If you're a lawyer watching this and I've got something totally wrong, please tell me in the comments, because I need to learn and I want to learn. So, set me right and we'll take it from there. I promised that I would read you the last emails I got before I got totally blocked by this person. So what they said was, I will keep doing requests for people who want art from me. They don't bother whether it's exact or not. I have lots of other stores. Please find them and report. And I do run another page in Facebook. Find that too. Well, there you go. So if you spot another artist's work in a place where it really shouldn't be and something looks wrong, do them a favour and just report it or let that artist know, and they'll really appreciate it.